The West has never been kind to the unprepared, and in 1884 Arizona Territory, it shows no mercy to the broken-hearted. Dust clings to everything, your clothes, your skin, even your hope. For Eliza Turner, that dust becomes the first thing she notices when her dream collapses in an instant. She came chasing a promise, a home, a husband, a future, but instead finds herself abandoned on a sunburnt train platform with nothing but a suitcase and a fading sense of direction. What follows is not just a story of survival, but of quiet defiance. It's about the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but endures. The kind that rebuilds, piece by piece, even when the world has already turned its back. The moment Eliza Turner steps off the train, the world feels larger than she imagined, and far more unforgiving. The Arizona sun presses down like a weight, relentless and unmoving, as if testing her before she's even had time to breathe. Her gloved hand tightens around the handle of her small suitcase, the only proof that she came here with purpose, with hope, with a fragile dream stitched together by letters and promises from a man she barely knew but trusted completely. She waits. At first, there is no panic. Only patience. The kind taught to her by years of quiet endurance. She watches each passenger leave, listens to the fading chatter, the shuffle of boots against wood, the distant whistle of the train preparing to depart again. She tells herself he is late. That something must have delayed him. That any moment now, she will hear her name spoken with warmth and certainty. But the minutes stretch. And then they break. The realization does not come all at once. It creeps in slowly, like the heat seeping through her dress, like the dryness settling in her throat. He is not coming. The man who wrote her tender letters, who painted pictures of a shared future, who promised her a place beside him in this wild, untamed land, has vanished into nothing. The platform empties. And Eliza is left standing there, still as a forgotten thought, staring down a horizon that offers no answers. For a moment, just a moment, her heart folds in on itself. The weight of humiliation presses hard against her chest. She can almost feel the invisible eyes of strangers, the quiet judgments, the unspoken understanding of what she must be: foolish, desperate, discarded. Her cheeks burn, though whether from the sun or shame, she cannot tell. She could cry. She wants to. There is a deep, aching pull inside her to collapse, to sit right there on the wooden planks and let the grief swallow her whole. Because this is not just disappointment. It is betrayal wrapped in silence. It is the death of a future she allowed herself to believe in. It is the cruel realization that she has crossed miles of unforgiving land only to be left utterly alone. But something in her resists. It is not loud. Not heroic. Not the kind of strength that demands attention. It is quiet. It is stubborn. It is the same part of her that packed her belongings, that boarded that train, that dared to believe her life could be more than what she left behind. That part of her does not break, it bends, trembles, but refuses to shatter. Eliza inhales slowly, the dry air scraping against her lungs, and lifts her chin just enough to keep the tears from falling. No, she whispers to herself, though no one is close enough to hear. No, she will not fall apart here. No, she will not let this be the end of her story. The decision is small in the moment, almost fragile, but it changes everything. Because resilience is not born from grand declarations. It is born from choosing, again and again, not to give up even when every reason says you should. She steps off the platform. Each movement feels deliberate, as if she is learning how to walk in this new version of her life, one where nothing is promised, and everything must be earned. The town around her feels foreign, its buildings worn and sun-bleached, its people hardened by lives she cannot yet understand. There is no welcoming embrace here. No soft place to land. Only dust. Heat. Silence. And yet, she keeps moving. The coins in her purse are few. The future ahead is uncertain, almost frightening in its emptiness. But there is something else inside her now, something stronger than fear. A quiet determination that refuses to let her be defined by someone else's absence. As the hours pass, the reality of her situation settles deeper into her bones. She is alone. Truly alone. No family nearby. No husband waiting. No guarantee of safety or shelter once the sun dips below the horizon. And still, she does not turn back. There is a strange kind of courage in that, not the kind that charges into danger, but the kind that endures it. The kind that looks at the vast, empty unknown and chooses to step forward anyway. By the time the golden light of late afternoon stretches across the land, Eliza feels the exhaustion creeping in. Her body aches, her throat burns, and her heart still carries the dull, persistent sting of what she has lost. But beneath all of that, there is something new taking root. Independence. Not the kind she dreamed of. Not the kind wrapped in romance or security. But real. Hard-earned. Unforgiving. And quietly powerful. She begins to understand that survival here will not come from waiting to be saved. It will come from her own choices, her own strength, her own willingness to keep going even when the path ahead disappears into uncertainty. There is a softness in her still, a tenderness that has not yet been hardened by the world. And that softness does not make her weak. It makes her human. It allows her to feel deeply, to care, to hope, even after being hurt. That is where her true resilience lies. Not in becoming cold or unfeeling, but in remaining open even when it would be easier to close herself off completely. As the wind picks up, carrying dust across the fading light, Eliza pauses for just a second and looks back at the train tracks. At the place where her old life ended without warning. There is no anger in her expression now. Only acceptance. And something quieter, deeper. Something that feels almost like the beginning of strength she has not yet fully discovered within herself. The first time Eliza sees him, she thinks he might already be dead. The ranch sits in silence, as though the land itself has forgotten it exists. Fences sag under their own weight, the windmill groans with every tired turn, and the house, if it can still be called that, leans slightly, like it has been waiting too long for someone to care whether it stands or falls. It is not a place that invites hope. It is a place that feels abandoned, much like she had been only days before. And yet, something draws her closer. Perhaps it is the instinct to search for shelter before night fully claims the desert. Perhaps it is something quieter, something deeper, the part of her that recognizes loneliness when it sees it. She pushes the door open slowly, the wood creaking in protest, and steps inside. The air is stale, heavy with neglect. Dust coats nearly every surface, and the faint scent of something bitter, medicine, maybe, or old wounds, lingers in the room. Her heart begins to beat faster, not from fear, but from an unexplainable sense that she is not alone. Then she sees him. Gideon Holloway lies stretched across a narrow bed near the far wall, his body still, his face pale beneath a layer of unshaven roughness. His chest rises faintly, uneven, as though each breath costs him more than the last. A bandage, poorly wrapped and long overdue for care, stains dark at his side. He is alive. Barely. Eliza hesitates. Every instinct warns her to leave. This is not her burden. This is not the life she came here for. She owes this man nothing. In a land where survival often depends on knowing when to walk away, staying could be the difference between living and losing everything. But she does not move. Because there is something about the way he lies there, so broken, so alone, that reaches into the quiet corners of her heart. It is not pity. It is recognition. A shared understanding of what it means to be left behind, to be forgotten by the world when you need it most. She steps closer. "Sir," her voice is soft, uncertain, as though afraid to disturb whatever fragile thread is keeping him tethered to life. No response. Only the faint, uneven rhythm of his breathing. She swallows, her fingers tightening slightly at her sides. This is the moment where she could turn away. Where she could choose herself, her safety, her uncertain future. Instead, she sets her suitcase down. And in that quiet, unspoken decision, everything begins to change. The first touch is hesitant. Her hand brushes against his forehead, and the heat startles her. Fever burns through him, unchecked and dangerous. His skin is rough beneath her fingers, but there is something vulnerable in the way he does not stir, in the way his strength has already abandoned him. "You're not alone," she whispers, though she isn't sure if he can hear her. Maybe she is saying it for him. Maybe she is saying it for herself. The hours that follow are not easy. She moves through the small house, gathering what little she can find: clean cloth, a basin, water that needs boiling. Nothing is in order. Nothing is ready. It feels as though the ranch has been holding its breath for weeks, waiting for someone to come and bring it back to life. And now, somehow, that someone is her. She cleans his wound with trembling hands, careful but determined. He stirs once, a low, pained sound slipping from his lips, and for a moment she freezes. But then she continues, gentler this time, her movements guided not by skill but by care. "Easy," she murmurs, her voice barely above the sound of the wind outside. "I've got you." It is a strange thing, caring for someone she has never met. A man who, under any other circumstance, would have remained nothing more than a passing stranger. And yet, as she tends to him, something shifts inside her. Her loneliness begins to soften. Not because it disappears, but because it finds something else to hold on to. Purpose. Each small act. Cooling his fever, adjusting the blankets, bringing water to his lips, becomes a thread that ties her to this place, to this moment, to him. And in that connection, fragile as it is, she begins to feel less like someone abandoned, and more like someone needed. When Gideon finally opens his eyes, it is not a dramatic awakening. There is no sudden clarity, no immediate understanding. Only confusion, pain, and the slow realization that he is not alone. His gaze finds her. And for a brief second, something unspoken passes between them. Suspicion. Weakness. And beneath it all, a quiet, flickering awareness. "You shouldn't be here." His voice is rough, barely holding together, but the words carry a weight shaped by pride and habit. Eliza does not step back. "Maybe not," she answers softly, meeting his gaze with a steadiness she did not know she possessed. "But I am." There is no argument left in him. Not now. Not like this. Days begin to pass, measured not by time but by progress. His fever breaks slowly. His strength returns in fragile increments. And through it all, Eliza remains. She learns the rhythm of his breathing, the way his expression tightens when pain returns, the quiet stubbornness that lingers even in his weakest moments. He is not an easy man, not even close. There are walls built deep within him, shaped by whatever past he carries, whatever losses have carved their way into his life. But she does not try to break those walls. She simply stays. And somehow, that becomes enough. There are moments, quiet and fleeting, when the distance between them begins to soften. A glance held a second longer than necessary. A word spoken with less resistance. A silence that no longer feels empty, but shared. Eliza finds herself noticing the small things. The strength in his hands even when they tremble, the depth in his eyes when they meet hers, the way his voice changes when he says her name for the first time, hesitant but real. Eliza. It is not just a name in that moment. It is acknowledgement. It is connection. And something in her chest stirs, warm and unfamiliar. She had not come here looking for this. Had not expected to find anything beyond survival. But now, in the quiet space between tending wounds and rebuilding something that once felt lost, she begins to understand that healing is not something that happens alone. It happens in the presence of someone who chooses to stay. Someone who sees the broken pieces and does not turn away. Someone who offers care not because it is easy, but because it matters. And as she watches Gideon slowly return to himself, she begins to feel something else, something just as powerful. She is healing too. Not in the same way. Not with the same wounds. But in the gentle, steady rediscovery of her own worth. Her own strength. her own capacity to give and receive something deeper than the promises that once brought her here. Something real. Something quietly, dangerously close to love. Love does not arrive all at once for Eliza and Gideon. It does not sweep in like a storm or announce itself with certainty. Instead, it lingers at the edges of their days, quiet and uncertain, like something waiting to be invited in. It grows in the spaces between words, in the silences they begin to share without discomfort, in the way their lives slowly begin to intertwine without either of them realizing when it truly began. By the time Gideon can stand on his own again, the ranch no longer feels like a graveyard of forgotten things. It breathes. Not fully, not yet, but enough to feel alive again. And so do they. Eliza notices it first in the smallest moments. The way Gideon no longer avoids her presence. The way his eyes, once guarded and distant, now linger just a second longer when she speaks. There is still pain in him, still shadows that have not yet faded, but there is something else now too, something warmer, something that reaches toward her without fully understanding why. For Gideon, the change is more unsettling. He is a man who has lived with loss long enough to distrust anything that feels like hope. He has built his life around endurance, around surviving what cannot be changed. Letting someone in, truly in, is not something he allows himself to consider. And yet, Eliza has already crossed the distance without asking. She is there when he wakes. There when he falters. There in the quiet evenings when the sky burns gold and crimson beyond the fields, and the world feels almost too still. She moves through the space like she belongs, like she has always belonged, and that thought alone unsettles something deep inside him. "You don't have to stay," he tells her one evening, his voice low, almost careful, as if the words themselves might break something fragile between them. Eliza looks at him then, really looks at him, and there is no hesitation in her eyes. "I know," she says softly. But she does not leave. And that is what changes everything. Because staying is a choice. And being chosen is something Gideon has not felt in a very long time. The days stretch into something softer, something steadier. Work replaces silence. Shared effort replaces distance. They rebuild not just the ranch, but something far less visible, trust. It does not come easily. There are moments when the past presses too close, when old fears rise to the surface and threaten to undo everything they have begun. Gideon pulls away sometimes. Not out of anger, but out of fear. Fear that this, whatever it is growing between them, cannot last. Fear that it will be taken from him, just like everything else he has ever tried to hold on to. He speaks less on those days, his expression hardening, his walls rising again piece by piece. And Eliza feels it. She feels the distance, the quiet shift in him, the way the warmth fades just enough to leave her questioning where she stands. It would be easy to retreat. Easy to protect her heart before it becomes too entangled in something uncertain. But she doesn't. Because she understands something he does not yet fully see, that love, real love, is not about never breaking. It is about choosing to stay even when things feel fragile. "You're not as alone as you think," she tells him one afternoon, her voice gentle but unwavering. He doesn't answer right away. But he doesn't walk away either. And that matters. The first time he reaches for her, it is not intentional. His hand brushes against hers as they work side by side, a fleeting contact that should mean nothing. But it lingers. Just for a second longer than necessary. Long enough for both of them to feel it. Something shifts. Eliza's breath catches, her heart betraying her with a quiet, sudden ache she cannot ignore. Gideon stills beside her, as if unsure what to do with the moment, as if afraid to move and risk breaking whatever has just formed between them. He looks at her. And in his eyes, there is something raw. Something unguarded. Eliza, her name leaves his lips differently now, softer, heavier with meaning. She does not pull her hand away. And neither does he. It is not a declaration. Not a promise. But it is real. From that moment on, everything feels different. The air between them carries something unspoken, something neither of them fully understands but both are beginning to feel. It is in the way he watches her when she isn't looking. In the way she finds reasons to stay close, even when there is no work left to be done. Love, when it finally begins to take shape, does not feel like something new. It feels like something that has been waiting for them all along. But love is not without its trials. The past does not disappear simply because something better has come along. It lingers. It waits. And eventually, it returns. Whispers from town begin to reach them, questions, judgments, stories that twist what they have built into something easier for others to understand. A woman alone on a man's ranch. A man with a history no one fully speaks about. It creates cracks. Small at first. Almost unnoticeable. But enough to let doubt seep in. Eliza begins to wonder if she truly belongs here, if this life she has stepped into is something she has earned or something she has simply taken. Gideon feels the weight of his past pressing harder, reminding him of all the reasons he does not deserve what he has found with her. And in those moments, love becomes something fragile again. Something that must be chosen. Again and again. You deserve more than this, Gideon tells her one night, his voice heavy with everything he cannot quite say. Eliza's chest tightens at the words, not because they are unkind, but because they are rooted in something deeper than either of them wants to face. More than what? She asks quietly. He doesn't answer. Because he doesn't know how. What he means is more than him. More than his broken past. More than the life he fears will only bring her pain in the end.
But Eliza sees through that. She steps closer, her presence steady, her gaze unwavering as it meets his. I didn't come here for perfect, she says, her voice soft but certain. I came here to live. And in that moment, something inside Gideon shifts. Because love is not about deserving. It is about choosing. It is about standing in front of someone with all your flaws, all your fears, all your broken pieces, and letting them see you anyway. Letting them stay. And when he finally reaches for her again, this time there is no hesitation. His hand finds hers, firm and certain, as if he has finally decided that whatever this is, whatever they are, it is worth the risk of losing. Worth the fear. Worth everything. Eliza steps closer, her heart racing, her breath unsteady as the distance between them disappears completely. She can feel the warmth of him, the quiet strength that has slowly returned, the vulnerability he no longer hides from her. And when he leans in, it is not rushed. Not uncertain. It is something chosen. Something real. Their first kiss is not perfect. It is soft, hesitant at first, carrying all the weight of everything they have been through. But it deepens slowly, naturally, as if both of them are learning something new together, how to trust, how to hope, how to love without fear of what might come next. In that moment, the past does not vanish. The world does not suddenly become easy. But none of that matters. Because what they have built is not fragile in the way they once feared. It is strong in a quieter way. Rooted in pain, yes. But also in understanding. In patience. In the simple, powerful act of choosing each other, even when it would be easier not to be. The time the desert winds begin to feel familiar instead of harsh, Eliza Turner is no longer the woman who stepped off that train with a broken promise clutched in her heart. The girl who once waited on a platform for someone else to define her future has faded into memory, replaced by someone stronger, steadier, someone who has learned how to build a life with her own hands, even when the world gave her nothing to start with. The ranch stands as quiet proof of that transformation. What was once a place of decay and silence now carries warmth in its walls, life in its fields, and a sense of belonging neither Eliza nor Gideon ever expected to find again. It is imperfect, much like them, wheat-haired, scarred, and shaped by hardship, but it is real. And more importantly, it is theirs. Not because it was given to them, but because they chose it. Together. Gideon Holloway is no longer a man waiting for the past to swallow him whole. The ghosts that once kept him distant have not disappeared, but they no longer control him. In Eliza, he found something he thought was lost forever. A reason to keep going, a reason to believe that even the most broken parts of a person can still be worthy of care, of connection, of love. And Eliza, in him, found something she never realized she needed. Not rescue. Not protection. But partnership. A quiet, steady presence that meets her strength with his own, that sees her not as someone fragile or abandoned, but as someone extraordinary in her resilience. Someone worth choosing, every single day. Their love is not loud or effortless. It does not exist without doubt or without fear. But it endures. It grows in the spaces where honesty replaces silence, where vulnerability becomes something shared instead of hidden. And that is what makes it powerful. Because in a world that once left them both behind, they found a way to move forward, not by forgetting what they had lost, but by allowing those losses to shape something new. Something deeper. Something that feels, in its own quiet way, unbreakable. As the sun sets over the Arizona horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, there is a stillness that settles over the land. Not the empty stillness of loneliness, but the kind that comes with peace. With knowing where you belong. Eliza stands beside Gideon, her hand resting easily in his, no longer questioning whether she should stay. She already has. And this time, she isn't waiting for a promise to be kept. She is living the life she chose, the love she fought for, and the future she built from nothing but courage, compassion, and the quiet, unwavering belief that even the most shattered beginnings can lead to something beautiful when two souls refuse to give up on each other.